They told you the truth would set you free, but they never told you that freedom has a cost. They never told you that when you speak too freely, you're not liberating yourself, you're arming someone else. It starts young, innocent. They ask, "What are you feeling?" Tell the truth. Say what's on your mind. They reward honesty with smiles, attention, warmth. So you learn to speak, not just to communicate, but to survive, to connect, to belong. And you keep going. You speak when you're hurt. You speak when you're scared. You speak when the silence grows too loud inside your chest. But nobody tells you that the more you speak, the easier you become to map. Because here's a truth no one wants to admit. Every truth you give away creates a thread, and those threads, they form a net. Now imagine this. You've been telling your truth to everyone. Friends, family, strangers online. You think you're being brave. You think you're being real. But what you're actually doing is handing over a map of your mind to anyone willing to read it. Every confession, a coordinate. Every breakdown, a weak point. Every vulnerable story you thought would connect you to others. Now a part of your emotional dossier. Filed away, ready to be used. You ever wonder why some people seem so in control, so unreadable, so composed, even in chaos? It's not that they don't feel. It's not that they're cold. It's that they've mastered the power of restraint. They've learned the hardest truth of all. Not every emotion deserves an audience. Not every thought deserves a stage. But here's the trap they built for you. The modern world made oversharing feel like strength. Post your struggle. Record your pain. Show them who you are. But what they didn't say out loud was that the world doesn't care about your healing. It cares about your patterns, your weaknesses, your triggers. Because while you bleed in public, they observe in silence. While you express your truth, they extract your strategy. You were taught to just be yourself. But what they really meant was, be easy to understand, be easy to predict, be easy to control. So let's break something right now. Something big, something internal, something they built deep inside your mind. That urge to be understood, that burning need to be known. That's not self-expression. That's vulnerability addiction. And it's killing your power. Because the more you need to be seen, the more permission you give them to define you. And you already know this. You've felt it. That quiet regret when you said too much in a conversation. That sinking feeling when your truth didn't feel respected, it felt used. That cold silence from someone who now knows too much about you, and treats you differently because of it. That's not paranoia. That's a warning. From your deepest instinct, the part of you that still remembers how predators behave. They don't pounce when you shout. They wait until you whisper something precious. Then they strike. Now listen closely. Because this part is uncomfortable. Because it's personal. You are not overexposed because of what you wear, what you post, or what you do. You're overexposed because of what you've revealed, without precision. And they told you that was noble. That being real meant being transparent. But here's the thing about glass. It doesn't fight back. You gave them your blueprints. And now you wonder why they always know exactly how to hurt you. Why they know what to say to shut you down. Why they know what makes you hesitate. What makes you doubt. What makes you obey. You trained them. You showed them. And the worst part, you didn't even know you were doing it. Because you thought you were building connection. But what you were really doing was offering control. Now ask yourself, how often do you speak to feel lighter, to feel closer, to feel real? And how often after speaking, do you feel exposed, misunderstood, or even manipulated? That pattern isn't a coincidence. It's a system you were conditioned to serve. But here's the switch, the one they fear you'll flip, the realization that not all truths need to be told. Not all moments deserve your voice. Not all people deserve your honesty. That silence isn't repression. It's architecture. It's power management. It's the pause before the storm. Because if your truth is valuable, then why are you giving it away for free? Let me offer you a shift. Start treating your inner world like classified intelligence. Something only the most trusted, the most earned people get access to. Not because you're hiding, but because you finally realize that protection isn't weakness. It's wisdom. From now on, ask yourself, what does this person do with my silence? Not with your stories, your vulnerability or your pain. but with your absence? Can they handle mystery? Or do they punish you when they can't predict you? That's where the answer lives. That's where your new power begins. Because the ones who truly hold power, they don't need to explain themselves. They don't need to shout their truth from rooftops. They build in the quiet, and when the time comes, they move. Swift, sharp, surgical, and the world just watches. Stunned, unprepared, too late. So here's what I want you to remember. Engrave it. In the age of exposure, the most dangerous person in the room is the one who says nothing, but sees everything. You've heard it since childhood. Tell the truth. Be honest. Say what you feel. Speak your heart. And so you did. You opened up. You gave people access to the places inside you that even you didn't fully understand. You wore your truth like armor, but what they didn't tell you is that sometimes armor shines too bright, and bright things attract the wrong eyes. There's a quiet lie stitched into our culture. It's elegant, it's poetic, and it's deadly. The lie that truth always liberates. But ask yourself this. How many times did you speak honestly, and ended up feeling exposed? How many times did you confess something real, something raw, and instead of comfort, you received judgment, distance, or silence? They told you honesty builds bridges. But sometimes, it builds walls. Because not everyone knows what to do with your truth. Not everyone deserves it. And more importantly, not everyone has the maturity not to use it against you. You see, truth is not always a gift. Sometimes, truth is a transaction. And the moment you hand it over without checking who's holding out their hand, you've already lost leverage. There's this moment, you've probably felt it before, when you say something deeply honest to someone, and they nod, they smile, they say all the right things, but something changes. Something shifts in the air. They now know something about you. And whether they realize it or not, that knowledge alters how they treat you. You thought truth would bring you closer. Instead, it made you smaller. Here's the reality no one wants to say out loud. Sometimes, honesty makes you a target. Not because what you said was wrong, but because you gave them the blueprint to dismantle you. Now pause. Breathe. Think back. Remember that time you told a friend something personal, thinking they'd understand, only to hear it from someone else later. Remember the lover you trusted with your pain, who later used those same words to cut you when you argued. Remember the time you told your story, hoping to inspire, but the audience didn't hear the strength. They heard the weakness. This isn't paranoia. This is pattern recognition. It's not the truth that's dangerous. It's the assumption that everyone will treat it with respect. Truth is not a universal invitation. It's a private key, and if you give it to the wrong hands, they don't just hold your past, they shape your future. People aren't evil for not knowing how to handle your truth. They're just human, flawed, insecure, reactive. They see your honesty, and it reminds them of their own fear, their own unhealed parts, so they protect themselves the only way they know how. By labeling your truth as too much. By backing away. By closing the door you tried to open. So what happens next? You shrink. You retreat. You stop speaking. Or worse, you keep speaking louder, hoping anyone, will hear you right this time. That's how the cycle begins. Honesty. Rejection. Silence. Honesty. Betrayal. Distance. Honesty. Exposure. Manipulation. Until one day, you stop speaking altogether. Not because you don't want to, but because you're afraid. And that fear doesn't come from weakness. It comes from experience. And here's the most painful part. You're not wrong. You're not weak for hesitating before telling your truth. You're not paranoid for questioning who deserves to know you. You're not cold for keeping certain things to yourself. You're wise. Because wisdom understands what innocence ignores. That honesty is power. And power must be protected, not poured out for anyone who happens to be listening. Think about how many times people say things like be honest with me. I want the real you. Don't hold back. But what they really mean is give me just enough to make me feel trusted, but not so much that I have to take responsibility for it. Truth makes people uncomfortable, and comfort is the currency of most relationships. The moment you disrupt that comfort, by being too honest, too raw, too real, You risk being left out in the cold. Not because you did something wrong, but because you did something rare. You exposed something sacred. And people don't know what to do with sacred. They want clean stories, filtered confessions, cinematic vulnerability that fits in a quote box, not a real moment of human complexity. But you're not here for performance. You're not here to package your pain into digestible pieces. You're here to protect your peace. And sometimes, that means understanding this brutal truth. Being honest does not always mean being understood, and being understood does not always mean being safe. So the next time you feel that need to speak your truth, pause. Ask yourself, is this person capable of holding my truth without dropping it? Are they strong enough not to use it against me later? Do they see my honesty as a bridge, or as leverage? And if the answer is unclear, keep it. Hold it close. Not because you're hiding, but because you're guarding something sacred. Because not every piece of you needs to be visible to be real. Remember this: your silence isn't a prison, it's a fortress. And the day you stop giving your truth away like confetti is the day you start building power no one can trace, and no one can take. You wake up, you check your phone. Before your feet even touch the floor, you've already been seen, measured, logged, and tracked. And not just by apps, or algorithms, or cameras in your devices, but by people who are always watching. Not with suspicion, not with love, but with calculation. They watch your tone, your silence, your timing, your pauses. They listen for what you don't say, more than what you do. They observe how often you smile, how quickly you reply, how easily you bend. And every time you share, they take note. You think you're just talking, you think you're being real, but what you're actually doing is feeding the system that doesn't care about your healing. It doesn't care about your growth. It only cares about your data, and not the kind that lives in megabytes, but in emotional blueprints. You see, we live in a world where the most powerful aren't the loudest. They're the quietest. The ones who say the least, but know the most. The ones who build profiles without you realizing. Every post, every vent, every reaction you share, online or in person, becomes a breadcrumb, leading straight to your softest spots. And they collect those breadcrumbs, one by one, until they know more about you than you know about yourself. You think you're free, because you can express yourself. But freedom without strategy, that's just exposure. And exposure without protection, that's leverage, given away for free. Let me ask you something real now. When was the last time you told someone how you truly felt, and regretted it later? Not because they hurt you directly, but because something inside you realized you gave them access they didn't earn. You see, in this culture, people aren't building relationships. They're building databases. They watch what makes you excited, what breaks your confidence, what makes you reactive, what makes you retreat. And while you think you're bonding, they're building a psychological map. One day, you'll get into a disagreement with someone. You won't even raise your voice. You'll just step back, and then they'll say it. That one thing. The sentence that slices right through your armor. And you'll feel cold. Because you realize. They remembered they stored it. And now, they're using it. This is the surveillance culture of the soul. And you were the provider. You gave them every security code, every weak password, every backdoor entry into your emotional system. Not because you were weak, but because you thought you were safe. And that illusion, that's how they get you. The illusion that talking is harmless. That being real is always good. That sharing equals connection. But let me tell you something that will burn a little. You're not always sharing. Sometimes, you're surrendering. And the people who study silence, they know exactly when that surrender begins. These people, they're never dramatic. They don't argue. They don't confront. They just remember. And they wait. Because the greatest predators in today's world don't pounce with fangs. They strike with timing. And their weapon, the truth you gave them. Now, I want you to pause. Think of someone who knows something deep about you, something they didn't earn, something you shared too early, too easily. Do you still feel comfortable around them? Or does part of you pull back? Because deep down, you know the power balance changed that day. This is the danger we don't talk about. The psychological weight of being seen too soon. We've made vulnerability fashionable. We've made overexposure trendy. And we've created a generation that confuses visibility with intimacy. But here's the truth. Intimacy isn't how much you share. It's how deeply someone protects what you didn't say. And trust isn't earned by how long someone's known you. It's earned by how they treat your silence. Let me give you a brutal analogy. If you walk into a room naked, you're not brave, you're vulnerable. But if you walk into a room fully dressed, and someone still sees you, that's power, that's presence. And the ones who know this, they speak less, they show less, they study more. And when they move, it's clean, sharp, undetectable. You never see them coming. And that's why they win. So here's what you need to understand now. Something that shifts everything. The people you fear disappointing, the people you think you need to be real for, are not always rooting for your clarity. They're watching for your collapse. Not always with cruelty. Sometimes just with curiosity. But either way, they're watching. Because in this surveillance culture, every truth you drop becomes part of your digital shadow. Not the one tracked by cameras. The one tracked by people's memory. And once it's there, you can't pull it back. You can't unsay it. You can't make them forget. You only have one option left. Rebuild your control through mystery. Silence is no longer a void. It's an encrypted space. It's how the powerful operate now. Not to hide, but to preserve. And once you embrace that, you stop performing. You start calculating. You stop seeking to be known. You start choosing to be felt, without being understood. That's where power begins again. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, to let it out, to be transparent, pause, breathe, ask yourself, is this clarity? Or is this just emotional self-surveillance disguised as connection? And if the answer stings a little, good, because that sting, that's awareness, that's your soul waking up, and it's whispering now.
They don't need to know you to feel you. They don't need to read you to respect you. And they don't need to track you, if they can't even find where you begin. There's a reason the most dangerous people in the room are the ones who speak the least. It's not because they have nothing to say. It's because they've realized something most never do, that silence is no longer absence. It's strategy. We were raised to think that the louder you are, the smarter you sound. We were conditioned to believe that speaking equals intelligence, that presence equals performance, that attention equals impact. But here's the truth that only the rarest discover. Real power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't explain. It watches. It waits. It listens. In a world where everyone is shouting, the one who doesn't dominates. Silence is not a lack of words. It's a language, a higher frequency of thinking, a shield that protects you from exposing what the world doesn't deserve to know. You think people fear confrontation? No, they fear mystery. They fear what they can't read. They fear what they can't prepare for. And silence is unpredictable. Have you ever been in a room where someone just listens, where everyone else is performing, reacting, trying to prove something, and that one person just leans back, watches, measures? That person owns the room, not with noise, but with presence. Because when you're silent, you're not just withholding information, you're creating tension, you're building pressure, you're forcing others to fill the space you left blank, and in doing so, you control the frame of the entire interaction. People will try to break that silence. They'll ask, "Why are you so quiet?" They'll say, "Speak your mind." But they don't want the truth. They want comfort. They want to map you. Don't give them that gift. Because silence, when used deliberately, becomes a form of dominance. You no longer need to win arguments. You just let people talk long enough to reveal everything. You let them expose themselves while you observe. You see, words are like currency, and the more you spend without thinking, the poorer you become. But when you invest your silence wisely, you start earning leverage. You notice the subtleties, the shift in someone's tone, the tension behind their smiles, the contradiction in their beliefs. You spot the lie before it's even fully formed. And here's the secret. People always reveal themselves, but only to the ones patient enough to remain quiet. You become dangerous the moment you realize that your words are weapons, and silence is the safety that keeps your arsenal hidden, until the right time. Let's talk tactics.
When you're in an argument and you stay quiet, you make the other person anxious because they don't know what you're thinking. They don't know if they've won or lost. They start projecting, unraveling, over-explaining, and all you did was wait. When you're negotiating and you pause instead of reacting, you take back control. You let them show their hand. You watch them lower their guard, because silence forces insecurity to speak, and insecurity always betrays itself. This isn't about being manipulative. It's about being aware. It's about recognizing that your value doesn't increase when you speak more. It increases when you speak with precision. Think of the most powerful people in history. The real ones, not the performers. They rarely spoke, and when they did, every word mattered. They understood that silence isn't a sign of submission. It's a sign of calculation. They knew that in moments of chaos, the one who stays still sees more. Let me break something open inside you right now. If you're always talking, always explaining, always reacting, you're easy to read, easy to trigger, easy to predict. But when you speak less and observe more, you shift the power dynamic. People don't know where to aim because you've taken away their target. And when you become unreadable, you become untouchable. So the next time you feel the urge to respond, don't let silence speak for you. Let your stillness become the mirror that makes others reflect. Let your presence fill the room so deeply that your absence would echo louder than anyone's words. You don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to overshare. You don't need to win people over with performance. You just need to protect your mystery. Because in this era of constant sharing, the rarest and most powerful currency is discretion. And those who master it, they become unforgettable. So if you've ever been made to feel guilty for staying quiet, if you've ever been pressured to speak when your instinct said stay silent, if you've ever been underestimated because you didn't explain yourself, let them wonder, let them project, let them chase the noise, while you study the silence. Because silence isn't weakness, it's a weapon, and when you master it, you don't just survive, you lead. The world is full of loud people saying very little. Be the quiet one who knows everything. You told them the truth, not to impress, not to manipulate. You told them because it was real, because in that moment it felt right. You thought vulnerability would open a door. You thought it would build something deeper. You thought it would make you closer. But what you didn't realize is that sometimes truth doesn't connect you. It binds you. You see, there's a debt no one talks about. A debt you create the moment you reveal something raw, unfiltered, unguarded. Not because someone asked for it. Not because they earned it. But because you believed they would honor it. That's how emotional debt begins. It's invisible. It doesn't come with interest rates or payment deadlines. It doesn't show up on your credit report, but it weighs you down just the same. Because once they really know something deep about you, the power balance shifts, and suddenly you find yourself tiptoeing. You hesitate before disagreeing with them. You overthink before pulling away. You soften your boundaries, not because they asked you to, but because now they know too much. And what if they used it? They haven't threatened you. They haven't even brought it up. But that thought lives in the back of your mind. What if they told someone? What if they change because of it? What if I've already given them too much? You don't need to be blackmailed to feel like you've been robbed. You don't need someone to weaponize your truth, to live in fear of it being out there. Because the real prison, it's not their knowledge, it's your awareness that you gave it. That you handed over something sacred, and now you're unsure what they'll do with it. This is how people become hostages, not in cages, but in conversations. You start holding back, not because you want to, but because you feel you have to. That freedom you thought honesty would buy. Turns out, it came with terms and conditions. You didn't mean to sign anything, but you did, emotionally, energetically. And now you're in debt. You smile when you don't want to. You agree when you should walk away. You keep showing up because you think, if I leave now, they'll think I used them. If I stop now, maybe they'll expose me. But who gave them that power? You did. You believed honesty was always noble, that sharing was always sacred. But what no one warned you about is that some truths, once shared, don't give you peace, they give you chains. And here's the most painful part. Sometimes, it's not even their fault. Sometimes they didn't ask for the truth. You gave it hoping to be understood. And maybe they listened, maybe they cared, but now they carry something that was never theirs to hold. And that's the trap. Because now, even if they love you, they can never forget what you said. And even if they'd never hurt you, you'll still fear that they could. That's what emotional debt does. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It questions your every move. It poisons your confidence.
it robs you of your peace. And over time, it becomes a cage you built for yourself, with the very bricks of honesty. So how do you break free? You don't owe people for understanding you. You don't owe loyalty for shared emotion. You don't have to stay small, because someone knows something big about you. And most of all, you don't have to keep paying a debt you never agreed to. You thought the truth would be an exchange, a gift, a connection, but what it became was a contract you didn't read. And now it's time to rewrite the terms. From this moment forward, you decide who earns access to your truth. You decide which parts of yourself are private, and stay that way. You decide when emotional sharing is safe, and when it's just a trap in disguise. Because here's what no one says out loud. Not everyone wants to understand you. Some people just want leverage. And the more you try to explain yourself to people who aren't built to hold space for you, the more you bury yourself in the illusion that visibility equals value. It doesn't. Power is never in being fully seen. It's in choosing how much of yourself gets revealed, and to whom. You can love people, without telling them everything. You can be authentic, without being stripped naked by your own confessions. You can be real, without being owned. So stop apologizing for your silence. Stop feeling guilty for protecting your mind. Stop calling self-preservation selfish. You're not cold. You're not closed off. You're strategic. Because truth, when unguarded, becomes exposure. But truth, when controlled, becomes power. And you're done being in debt. You're done tiptoeing around people who only value you when you bleed for them. You're done fearing the weight of what you said in moments of trust. You're done shrinking because someone else holds a piece of your story. That story is still yours. It always was. And now, it's time to reclaim it. Because the truth, the real truth, it's not what you say. It's what you decide not to give away anymore. They told you it was okay to open up. They said this is a safe space. They promised they'd never judge, never use it against you, never forget how much it took for you to share. And maybe they meant it. Maybe they really did believe they could hold your truth, your pain, your scars, with care. But what no one ever tells you is this. Safe spaces are often just well-decorated traps, because safety isn't something people can offer with their words. It's something they prove over time, through silence, through presence, through restraint. You thought you were in good hands. You thought you found that rare person, that rare room, where you could let it all go. So you spoke, and your voice trembled, and your soul surfaced, and for a moment you felt lighter, heard, understood, free. But freedom, when built on assumptions, is fragile. Because sometimes, it's not the cruel people who break you, it's the good ones. The ones who simply don't know what to do with the truth you gave them. They didn't mean to weaponize your words, but they did. They didn't mean to retreat when you got vulnerable, but they did. They didn't mean to see you differently, after you shared your shadow, but they did. And suddenly the space you thought was safe, becomes tense, awkward, cold. You notice they laugh a little less around you. They speak a little more carefully. They don't look you in the eye the same way anymore. And it hits you. Your truth didn't bring you closer. It made you foreign. Not because it was wrong, but because it was too real for the illusion they had of you. And here's where the illusion shatters. There's no such thing as a permanently safe space. Not even with the people you love most. Because people change. Their priorities shift. Their alliances move. Their memory rewires based on new stories, new fears, new insecurities, and suddenly the truth you shared in confidence is now a liability they carry, a threat to their peace, an echo they can't unhear. So what do? They distance, they freeze, they flinch, and sometimes, they repeat, not to betray, just to relieve the pressure you never intended to create.
This is the most uncomfortable truth of all. You can't guarantee safety in human connection, because you can't control what people will do with what you give them. And that doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. The illusion of safe spaces tells you that love guarantees loyalty, that understanding guarantees silence, that time guarantees trust. But ask yourself, how many people do you still speak to after you told them your darkest truth? How many stayed the same? How many drifted away without explanation? How many turned the safety you believed in into your greatest discomfort? That's not just coincidence. That's emotional inflation. You invested something rare into a market that couldn't hold its value. And now you hesitate. You hesitate before telling the truth again. You overthink before opening your mouth. You wonder if your past honesty already wrote stories you no longer control. Let me offer you something healing, but also haunting. The only truly safe space is the one you build inside yourself, not in another person, not in a relationship, not in a promise, in yourself, because people mean well, until they're scared, until they're tired, until they're forced to choose between protecting your secret and protecting their image, their comfort, their convenience. And the truth is, most people will choose themselves, not out of cruelty, but out of survival. So here's what you need to start doing. Stop giving out your truth like it's a handshake. Start treating it like it's a sacred scroll. Guard it, weigh it, vet who gets near it. Ask yourself, have they ever held silence well? Have they ever protected someone else's shadow? Have they proven they can witness pain without trying to fix or flee? If the answer is no or I don't know, don't open the door, because some people knock not to enter, but to measure what's inside. And if your walls are too thin, your voice too loud, your history too accessible, they will walk in, unprepared, and leave you messier than before. You see, silence isn't just a boundary, it's an invitation filter. It doesn't keep people out, it simply keeps the wrong ones from stepping in too far. You don't have to be hard, you just have to be selective. You don't have to be distant, you just have to be private. Because privacy, in a world of oversharing, is a revolution. It's the only true safe space left. So from now on, let your silence speak louder than any cry for comfort. Let your mystery draw in only the ones with the patience to earn your truth. Let your stillness become your sanctuary. Not because you're afraid to speak, but because you finally understand the power of not needing to. Because here's what they don't want you to realize. When people can no longer predict you, control you, or read you, they respect you. Not because they understand you, but because they have to. There's a version of you they can't manipulate. A version that doesn't over-explain, doesn't overshare, doesn't react on cue. A version so composed, so unreadable, it makes them uncomfortable. That version is strategically invisible, and now it's time to become it. You've done the other thing. You've opened up. You've handed over the passwords to your soul, hoping it would unlock connection. But now you know better. You've seen what happens when people know too much. How they start to speak to you like you're fragile. How they walk around you like they're avoiding landmines you never meant to place. You've watched them turn your truth into texture, a label, a lens, a leash. So now it's time to disappear. Not from the world, but from their reach. This isn't about hiding. It's about mastering the art of presence without exposure. You still exist. You still speak. You still show up. But you leave no fingerprints. Your thoughts, yours. Your wounds, healed in silence. Your next move, unseen. Because the person who can no longer be read, can no longer be used. People fear what they can't predict. They fear the quiet. They fear the smile that doesn't come with an explanation. They fear the silence between your words, because it means they're not in control of the story anymore. And here's the thing about stories. Most people don't want to know yours. They want to rewrite it. They want to cast themselves in it. They want to know where they fit, where they can manipulate the plot. But when you stop giving them access to your script, when you stop narrating every emotion, every intention, every insecurity, you take back the pen. That's what strategic invisibility is. It's not cold, it's coded. You don't owe anyone a map to your mind. You don't need to be digestible. You don't need to be explained. Let them misunderstand you. Let them guess. Let them project. Because every time you resist the urge to clarify, you increase your power. Let me say that again. Every time you resist the urge to be understood, you build a wall they can't climb. And behind that wall, you grow, you heal, you calculate, you build quiet momentum that no one can sabotage. You're not being distant, you're being deliberate. And there's a massive difference. You've seen what happens when you're too available, too predictable, too easy to access. They stop appreciating you. They stop protecting what they once valued. Because what's fully visible feels expendable. But the one they can't figure out, the one they can't read, that's the one they fear losing. That's the one they chase harder, respect more, speak about in rooms you're not even in. Because people remember what they can't fully grasp. They're haunted by the unsaid, by the version of you that never gave them the blueprint. So start being unpredictable in your presence. Start being selective with your energy. Start showing up when you want to, not when they expect you to. Start responding with fewer words. Start listening more than you speak. Start mastering the silence between your answers. Because that's where power hides. You don't have to be loud to be noticed. You just have to be so solid in your silence that even your absence feels like presence. That's what the greats understand. They don't chase recognition. They don't argue for clarity. They don't defend their name in every room. They walk so intentionally, so mysteriously, so silently, that the floor still echoes after they've left. This is your moment to become that, to pull your energy back from places it was never appreciated, to reserve your explanations for people who actually earn them, to stop thinking you have to narrate every version of your transformation. You don't. You can evolve in private. You can rise without notice. You can build without applause. Because strategic invisibility isn't just about what you hide, it's about what they can never see coming. Let them wonder where you went. Let them question your silence. Let them create theories. While they do that, you're crafting a future that no one can interfere with. You're building inner strength so real, it doesn't need validation. You're designing a life with hidden doors only you can open. And you're becoming someone who's impossible to corner, because no one knows where your edges are anymore. That's how you reclaim control. Not with noise, not with proof, not with pain, but with presence that cannot be pinned down. You are no longer a story on display. You are now a code no one can crack. And that is your freedom. You've spent your whole life trying to be known, to be seen, to be understood. You believed that if people got you, they wouldn't leave. That if they saw your heart, your pain, your truth, they'd stay. They'd protect you. They'd choose you. But now, you understand something deeper, something heavier, something dangerous. You were never meant to be fully understood. You were meant to be respected, even in your silence. Because legacy, true legacy, isn't built in the spotlight. It's built in the shadows, not where people clap, not where they praise, but in the quiet places they never see coming. The places where your real growth happens, in silence, in solitude, in moments of stillness where you're not trying to be impressive, just intentional. You don't need to shout your worth anymore. You don't need to prove that you've changed, because the most powerful changes are never announced. They're felt. You're not here to leave a mark they can read. You're here to leave an energy they'll never forget. Let others fight to be remembered. You will be unshakable, because your power no longer lives in what they know about you, but in what they'll never figure out. That's what legacy really is. It's not a name on a wall. It's the ripple in the room long after you've walked out. It's the tension people feel when your name is mentioned, not because of what you said, but because of how little you had to. It's in the fact that they can't imitate you, because they never really knew what made you. That's the price of strategic silence, and the reward. Because when you no longer speak to be understood, when you no longer live to be explained, you start moving with a force no one can copy. They'll try to guess what you're thinking. They'll try to decode your moves, but they'll always be 2 steps behind, because your truth stopped living on the surface. And when you master that, you stop being a person they respond to, and become a presence they can't ignore. That's what happens when you stop bleeding in public, when you stop narrating your pain for applause, when you stop giving people a front row seat to your healing. You become sacred, you become mysterious, you become untouchable, because the truth is, not everyone deserves to witness your transformation. Not everyone should hear your truth. Not everyone has the character to carry what you've survived. So stop shrinking to be relatable. Stop explaining your fire to people who only see smoke. Stop performing your worth like it's an audition. You are no longer for consumption. You are for legacy. And legacy doesn't require explanation. It just requires direction. It requires knowing where you're going, even when no one else can see the path. And that path, it's quiet, it's narrow, and it's powerful. It's where you learn that silence isn't just protection, it's creation. Because while they're talking, you're building. While they're watching, you're evolving. While they're doubting, you're becoming. Until one day, they realize you're not the same. They can't figure out where they lost track of you. They don't know what changed, but something did. They'll feel it. In your posture, in your calm, in the way you don't flinch anymore, in the way you don't explain anymore, in the way you walk, like someone who's already won a battle they never saw. That's the moment they'll know you're no longer available for their understanding, because your legacy now moves in silence, not to be hidden, but to be undisturbed. You don't owe them access. You don't owe them closure. You don't owe them a single sentence of justification. Let them wonder. Let them talk. Let them try to predict your moves. Because when your power lives in the shadows, your impact arrives, like a storm, unseen, unstoppable, unmistakable. And if there's still a part of you
that wants to be seen, to be known. Don't kill it, just redirect it. Let your soul be seen by the few who earn it. Let your vision be clear to yourself, even when others stay blind. Let your power be so focused, so calculated, so intentional, that you no longer need recognition, because the world doesn't respect noise, it respects results, and your results will speak louder than anything you ever said. So here it is, your final shift, from visibility to vision, from honesty to strategy, from reaction to restraint, from narration to navigation. This is the end of the performance. This is the beginning of your power, and your legacy. It won't be remembered in stories you told, but in the silence that left them stunned. So walk forward, eyes forward, voice low, mind clear, presence sharp. Let them underestimate you. Let them overlook you. Let them misread your silence, because while they do, you'll be building an empire in the shadows, and when it rises, they won't even know what hit them.